Welcome back to another episode of ToolBox TV. That's another week that has just literally flown by. And of course, next week on Friday we have ToolBox Live, at which we're going to have a bumper day, confirm two additional speakers, two guest speakers. We have Julie, who's going to talk to us about upscaling our businesses. She talks about the whole enhancement of your business. So any of you who are looking to grow, that are looking to add staff or need to put systems into place, then Julie's definitely a woman to listen to. And then of course later in the afternoon we have Tosin, and Tosin is recognised as one of the UK's leading NLP trainers. And Tosin's going to talk to us about how we can use or make use of NLP in our selling techniques, how we can use it to build rapport and build relationships with our customers to help increase the number of sales that we actually get from our quotes. So like I said, I promise it to be an absolutely fantastic day. If you as a member of My Electricians Toolbox have not yet booked your ticket, go into the members area now and book your seat. It's looking like we're going to have a full house. It's looking like there's going to be 25 plus people in attendance. So it proven to be an interesting day to say the least. So I look forward to seeing you guys at that. But in terms of ToolBox TV this week, the topic I want to talk to you about is one that has been queried a number of times by different members of the Toolbox, and that's this whole idea of free or very low cost marketing techniques. Now, those of you who know me know that most of the stuff that I talk about is either free or very low cost. I don't believe that you need to spend a fortune in terms of marketing. When you're putting together your marketing plan, you can plan in tools that are very little cost, and those are mostly the techniques that I talk about. However, there still has to be, in some cases, a cost element, and in some cases, you know, people will talk to you about a marketing budget, particularly accountants and the like. Business coaches will talk to you about having your marketing budget and knowing what your marketing budget is. It's not a concept that I subscribe to. I don't believe that we should just set aside a sum of money and when it's spent, that's your marketing budget spent, which is typically the way people look at a budget. To me, a marketing budget is flexible. To me, if you find something that works for you, you keep working it. You keep putting money into it. The way I describe it, the way I liken it, if you will, is to a one-arm bandit or an old-style slot machine, where you put a coin in, you pull the lever, and you win or you lose. Well, imagine you come across one of these machines, one of these one-arm bandits, that when you put a pound in, every single time you pull that arm, it gives you out £5 or more, but at least £5. Every time you pull that lever, it hands you back out £5. You'd keep putting a pound in all day long, every day, wouldn't you? You'd keep putting that pound into the top of that slot so that you got the 5 or 5 plus out of it. That's what your marketing should be like. That's what your marketing budget, in my view, should be like. Now, of course, if it stops giving you the return, then you stop doing it. And that's why we use things like tracking numbers, and we make sure that we keep a good record of the techniques that we're using and the returns that we're getting from them. But in terms of low or no cost, I also appreciate the fact that there are guys out there who are starting out and they don't have that initial pound to put in the top slots. I know that because I've been there myself. I mean, when I was coming back from the brink of bankruptcy, I didn't have the money to take out advertisements in popular magazines that were expensive. I didn't have the budget or the money to go and buy nice, flashy, glossy leaflets. And thank God I didn't, because it was by not having that, it helped me to discover how to really make leaflets work. But I understand that there are guys out there who struggle to find that initial amount to start with. So what I've done is I've compiled a list of my top 4 marketing techniques that are low or no cost, and if you use these, you will get work. you know, there is no doubt about it. But then when you start to get work and you start to get an income from using these, then you need to ramp up to the paid methods, you know, to start using the magazines, which are very effective. But I appreciate you've got to get some money in the bank before you can start doing that. So in no particular order, I've listed my top four, the 4 free stroke low cost methods that I would use and recommend, and that are very, very effective. So the first one would be Google Places. Now, of course, we assume you already have a website, and websites, guys, can be 2 a penny these days. You get a free one as a member of my Electricians Toolbox. There are a number of other ways you can put a website up for very, very little, but the number one technique would be Google Places, and creating your listing on Google Places and creating it properly. Now, this video is too short to actually go into how you create it properly, but one of the tips I would suggest is that when you set it up, you create a data sheet or a spreadsheet that lists everything you've put on there. So, you know, this sounds obvious, but your name, your business name, the address, your contact telephone number, your email address, the website URL, any comments that you've put in there about your business and what your business does and doesn't do, opening times, all of this type of thing, but created a spreadsheet of all of that information. And the reason for that is that once you've completed all of your listing on Google Places, which will really help your rankings and help drive people to your website, but once you've created your listing on Google Places, then you need to go and find some free online directories and put your listings on those. Now, the type of directories I would suggest you go after is not the big generic nationwide ones, but the local ones, and there are plenty of those out there as well. If you look for local trades directories, you'll find directories where you can post information about your business for free. But use the data sheet that you created when you were building your Google Places, because if you can make your listings pretty much identical, that increases your visibility on Google and your rankings on Google. See, Google will look at similarities, and it'll look at the address field, it will look at the name field, it will look at the phone number field. And if these things match, they have relevance. And if they have relevance, then it'll push your rankings in terms of your website up that little bit higher. So in particular, what we're talking about is if your address was, for example, Abinger Drive, then you would write Abinger Drive in every single listing. You wouldn't, in one listing, abbreviate it to Abinger DR. If your name, let's say for example like mine is James DeWarn, if I did James DeWarn in one listing, then I wouldn't abbreviate it to J DeWarn in subsequent listings, because it would work better in terms of my generic organic SEO by having everything exactly the same in each and every single listing that you do. So that would be my first advice for free advertising, and it will help you to get ranked. It will help you to be visible when people are searching online, because not only will it sort of pick up on your website, but people will pick you up in these local directories as well. My next one that I'll talk about is leafleting, and again, you know, many of you will know that this is perhaps my favorite method of marketing, probably of all times. Out of everything else that I've done, this is the most responsive. And you've heard me refer to it previously as like being a cash machine, because you can generate money at will if you do leafleting right, if you target the right areas. And it's not necessarily free, but it certainly initially can be low cost. And I know that because I did it for me, and I did it for Paul when Paul's business was going through some troubles as well, where we actually produced the leaflets ourselves on our home computer. Now, that's not a long-term strategy, because if you're printing out leaflets on your home computer, you're going to chew up ink very, very quickly. But in terms of getting you off the ground and up and running to earn some money to go to a printer, I mean, after all, you can get 10,000 leaflets done for probably about 180, actually you get 20,000 done for about £180. there's all sorts of deals out there now, you know, and the cost of print runs changes from week to week. You can get fantastic deals, and of course, if you're going down the print shop route, I would suggest you shop round. Every time you go for a print run, shop round, because prices change that frequently in the print business. But going back to the cheaper, low-cost method, you do it yourself. It's a short-term method, not a long-term method, but in a number of occasions where we have done it, where I've done it for myself and I've done it for Paul, it has helped tremendously to bring in business. And of course, when that business comes in, you then allocate some of the money to other marketing techniques, either professionally printing leaflets, and when I say professionally printing, I don't mean getting them all glossy and everything. I mean just going to a printer and getting them printed in large quantities rather than just running them off on your home PC. And most of us have a home computer, most of us have a printer. When I was doing it for myself, I had a printer that printed on just one side. So all I did was ran off a print run on one side. You run off 10, 20 sheets of A4 that are split 4 ways to make your 4 leaflets on it. You let it dry, you turn it over, you run it through again, and you print the back of the leaflet. You then use a guillotine. Now I'm guessing many of you won't have a guillotine lying around the house, but they're pennies down in, if you go to any Staples, I think you can pick up a cheap guillotine for about £10. You can get really expensive ones for a lot more, but for what you're going to use it for, what you're going to need it for, a cheap guillotine will do you, you know, absolutely fine. So printing off your leaflets yourself, cutting them out yourself, short term, but very, very effective. If you target the right people, if you have the right call to action on your leaflet, if you have the right offer on your leaflet, it's an absolutely dynamite way of getting work instantly. Many of you who've tried it already will know. In fact, those of you who have tried it already, put a post at the bottom of this, put a comment at the bottom of the Facebook posting on this, just to let the others know how effective this is. Because, you know, within an hour of dropping the leaflets, your phone will ring. You will get business if you've done the leaflet correctly, if you have put it, if you've delivered it correctly as well, i.e. put it out to the right area, the right demographic, the right kind of people that you're targeting, your targeted audience. Then your phone will ring. You will get work from leaflets, and that's why it's one of my favourite of all time methods of advertising and getting work in. The next one is number 3 is networking and networking events. Now, in most cases, you pay for networking, but in all cases, if you're going to networking meetings, they will allow you a certain number of visits, normally 2 to 3 visits, before they'll insist that you pay or insist that you join their group. And of course, one of my one of my words of advice is that you should not just join the first group that you come across. You should get round and visit a number of groups in your area until you find one that you can fit in. So let's say, for example, there are 5 in your area, 5 networking groups in your area. Go visit all 5, and then go visit all 5 again, and then go visit all 5 again before you make a decision to join. You don't have to commit any money. And again, I guarantee you, if you do your networking correctly, if you have the right approach to networking, you'll get work from that as well before you ever have to pay a penny. So simply by going around and trying to select one that you want to join, you'll find business will be given to you. You'll find that people will refer business to you if you approach the networking properly. So although it will cost long term, you can get a couple of months, certainly 2-3 months, out of just going around and visiting networking groups. And of course, those are, of course, I'm talking about or referring to their breakfast networking groups, the likes of BNI, and there are many other different kinds of groups that you can go and network at that are either low cost, you'll pay on the evening for your coffee or your snacks or whatever, or no cost. There are organisations like the Chambers who run local networking meetings. There's a lot of other different local organisations that will run events where you can go and network. But learn how to network. Don't expect to just go and network, i.e. turn up at a meeting and hope that work's going to be given to you. It doesn't work that way. You need to put some work into it. And of course, inside your member area, there's a lot of information about this. Inside my Electricians Toolbox, there's information on how to network properly, how to prepare for networking, how to follow up after networking. So go and look up that section and make use of it. But as a freebie, as a free way of getting business, it's an easy start, and then once you're making the money, you pay for your membership and carry on. So that's number 3, that's networking. And then of course number 4, the final one that we're going to talk about today, is joint ventures. And the whole idea of joint ventures is nothing new. Joint venturing is something that we have done in the trades for years. We just never really formalized the idea, and that is when we pass work to our favorite plumber or our favorite carpenter, and they pass work back to you, and that's great. Or somebody passes you work and you give them a drink for the work, and again that's great. But there is a method for formalizing that kind of a joint venture whereby you can make it more effective. And again, information is inside your member area. Information is there for you to download. And this doesn't cost you anything, this type of joint venturing. One of my favorite forms of joint venturing, which I often talk about thinking outside of the box, is when I discovered that you don't have to limit it to the trades. One of my favorite ones to talk about are hairdressers. And if you consider that my target audience spend their money in hairdressers, my target audience are sitting in a hairdresser's chair at least probably once a month and having their hair done and having themselves pampered. And if I can have that hairdresser recommend me, if I can have that hairdresser explain to people that they know a good electrician who can find you every other tradesman as well, because of course by joint venturing with other tradesmen it helps me with the hairdressers, it helps me with my homeowners, it helps me with my estate agents, because I become a gatekeeper. I can then be the person they call when they want a plasterer, and I'll be the person that they'll call when they want a gardener. I'll be the person that they'll call when they want a plumber, which is great for keeping my name on the top of their tongue again, which is what it's all about. Because when they want a carpenter, they'll call me, but they'll certainly call me when they want an electrician. And that's the whole idea of setting up this whole idea of being a gatekeeper when you joint venture. You're the person that they should come to when they need another trade, so that you can actually pass the details, so you're seen as the good guy with the other trade members, because they're thinking James is great, he's passing me work. And for the homeowner, James is great because he's able to get me people who I don't have to take a punt on, I don't have to take a chance on. If James trusts them and I trust James, then it all works out well. But if we go back to the hairdresser scenario, what does the hairdresser get out of it? If I'm going to recommend if the hairdresser is going to recommend my services, why should they? Why should they do it for me? And I discovered the whole idea of the hairdresser thing when I was probably at one of my lowest points, recovering from my near bankruptcy. And there was a friend of mine who had a hairdresser's that I was working in there trying to just earn a few quid with him, not cutting hair, guys. No, he was he had just refurbished the shop and he had some new pedestals in, but he'd realised he needed some additional sockets and things. And I was working in there for the day and I was putting these extra sockets in. But what was interesting was by the end of the day I had walked away with 3 other jobs, and one of them was actually a complete rewire. One was in a really nice project. But I walked away with 3 extra jobs, and that was purely by being there in the hairdressers when the ladies had come in, were sitting in the chair and were chatting away about, oh, we're thinking about having this done, oh, we're considering that. And it just then turned into a conversation of, right, I'll pop around, I'll give you a quote, and we'll get the work out of it, and that was it. But it made me think that if it was that easy for me to do it while I was there, how would it be if I could encourage hairdressers, if I could encourage the hairdresser to recommend me when they were having those types of conversations with their customers? So, the hairdresser is like a confessioner, isn't it? It's, the person comes in, they sit down and they go, oh, the kids are playing up, oh, the husband's doing this, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they also then will say, oh, yeah, and we're thinking about having the loft knocked in. We're going to put a room in the loft, and we might be extending it out the back. We could be doing a conservatory. Ideal opportunity then for the hairdresser to simply say, well, you need to be talking to James. James is an electrician and he can get his hands on a team of people who will do this for you, or whatever the patchwork might be, whatever way they actually discuss this. But regardless, they are in that position. They have the captive audience, the head on a plate, if you like, that they can actually pass out my business card and recommend my services. What's in it for them? I can do their pad testing for free. One of the nice things was with my friend is the realization that hairdressers have to have pad testing done every single year. They must. It's part of a business requirement for insurances and so on and so forth. So if they have to have it done every year and they have to pay for it every year, well, I can do it for free for them, simply keeping some business cards and some leaflets in their hairdressers and talking about me to their customers as their customers come in. Or, you know, they don't have to create a conversation. They don't have to stand there and go, oh, I want to tell you about James, I want to tell you about James. They just wait for the conversation to come up, which it will do naturally. So that's hairdressers, and it works really, really well. For my target audience, it works really, really well. And of course, there are other opportunities as well. There are personal trainers, there are dog walkers, there are nursery centres, you name it. There's any amount of people, you know, that you can joint venture with. If you think a little bit outside of the box and you match the joint venture partner up with your ideal customer, who else is doing business with your customer? That's what you need to think. Who else is doing business with your customer, and what can you offer them in return for them recommending you? So those are my 4 easy to implement, cheap, low cost or no cost methods to advertise and promote yourself. So until the next time, continue to learn and grow, and I'll see you in the next video.